Welcome back to the channel. We're in the garage today, and today we are officially starting the 1972 Kawasaki F7 Resto Mod Restoration Rebuild Series, I suppose. This has been a long time in the working. I mean, probably ever since I started riding over 5, 6, 7 years ago now. I've lost count. So if you have any questions about where this all stemmed from, how this started, I actually have 2 previous videos talking about this motorcycle here and my father's 1972 Kawasaki F7 over there. He's excited for me to start working on this because he really wants to ride his Kawasaki again. A little bit of backstory, he actually bought this back in like 1973 and has owned it since then. He even rode it all the way up into, what, the mid 2005, 2006, I think was the last time I really saw him ride it around. And then I rode it when I started learning to ride motorcycle. But since then, it's kind of fallen into disrepair. It's got some rust in the tank. The forks are no longer really supported. They're drum brakes front and rear. It's a weird 6-volt system still. So there's a lot of weird things working against it. It's mostly original. It's even on the original tires from 1972. New tubes though, I think the tubes they were done in like the 80s. So I guess that's something. And I think the carburetor was rebuilt sometime in the early 2000s maybe. So I recently picked up this 74 Kawasaki F7. Slightly different, mostly the same thing. But this one has been modified. It actually has a front end off of I think it's a Yamaha RT180. So it's got new disc brake, rebuilt front forks, 21-inch front wheel. It's got new seat, some other options on it too. Just a lot of good parts that I can take and use on my bike. So the reason I'm kind of sacrificing one bike is this bike is unregistered, no title, don't even know what the history on it is, don't really care. What I'll probably end up doing is probably flipping a lot of the parts on this bike. We'll see. I plan on reusing a majority of the parts on this motorcycle and maybe keeping a few parts around for spares. So we'll see how far we go. So let's start discussing my first plan of attack for these bikes. So my first plan actually is I picked up a ton of evaporust, and I'm currently kind of experimenting to see what this does to the paint and how long I need to leave it in evaporust. So you can kind of see here, it is working. Very cool. And it's not really hurting the paint at all. So I want to keep this bike red because I really like the red. My dad at first was really enamored with the blue, but and then this is like an old, if I get this out, this is the old mirror, and I mean it is rusty. You can see it's starting to clean up, but it's so pitted, and I'm mostly just doing that as an experiment. And you can see I got 3 gallons of this because there's a lot of hardware and bolts I'd like to reuse and maybe repurpose on all this stuff. So over here on my Kawasaki, like I said, it is drum brakes front and rear, and you can kind of see the original shocks here. Now when I got this bike and started riding it around, I pulled this exhaust off and did this high temp paint and repainted this shield here silver. Over on this one, you can see this is what it used to look like. Just this. And that's why that was like one of the mods I did to repaint mine. Another thing I did, which I now regret, is I cut the frame on it. And this is actually half of a fender off of a Honda Shadow. And I cut the frame here and did this little bobbed rear end. What's funny is I kept the pieces. Not sure why. This is pretty much everything I saved that I took off the bike. This is actually the battery. A little 6-volt battery. So my plan is to basically just cut this off here and put it back on my frame, and I'm going to sleeve it or tube it and sleeve it and all and weld that back on, and I'll have this nice rear fender. I'll probably take this tail light because I think mine is busted up, but you see all this rust here? That's the stuff I'm going to try to remove. So my first plan of attack really is I want to pull the tank off my bike, rinse out the inside of it, and fill it up with some evaporust. And then it's probably going to sit overnight. And that's really the first place I want to start. My tank is not perfect, but I like the patina, so I plan to submerge the tank in the evaporust, and then I'm probably just going to clear coat it. I really like it. You can see how sun faded it is on this side. And then the inside, yeah, see, there's some scale down in there. It's not all bad, it mostly just looks bad right there, but the rest of it's actually decently clean. And I don't believe it leaks any, it never has leaked. All right, well, by now you know the drill, so let's dig into it. So this is where I'm at. Currently, my factory one that came on my dad's Kawasaki, all the tubes are just disintegrated. So that was probably what was laying in the bottom of the tank, clogging this. This one has the tubes intact inside, but I noticed that the petcock and vacuum is leaking actively. Which is funny because I emptied all the fuel out of this, but this is literally just the fuel liner, I believe, just disintegrating, like I said. It is leaking, so that leads me to believe that the diaphragm is cracked or just not sealed correctly. So, funny enough, the Harley Sportster petcock actually fits these tanks. It's a 22 millimeter petcock, pretty easy replacement. A lot of guys get rid of the diaphragm because they just are prone to failure, especially with how old the bikes are. So I'm probably going to just pick up a Sportster non-diaphragm vacuum controlled petcock for the bike. So that way when you park it, you just shut the fuel off and it'll simplify the system a little bit. So that's my plan for that. Otherwise, these parts are still soaking. You can see all the surface rust that came off of the fender brace. I'm just waiting for this little tip to clean off now. And I didn't really have enough to cover the whole fender, so I'm kind of doing a 50-50. And then the last bit on the take that I'm waiting on is this portion here. And I'm probably actually going to flip the tank upside down because I see there's still a little bit on the rim here. I'm going to try to get it as good as I can, and then I can treat the tank. But the taillight came out really good. There's a little bit of pitting, but I'm going to polish it up some. But it came out really good. And my fuel cap, this was like black. Now look at it. It's just like perfect. So, oh, and then this is my mirror that I was testing. This is basically what it looks like when a completely horribly rusted piece has the rust removed. It's pitted to hell. So, yeah. I don't know what I'll do with this. I'm sure if I leave it unexposed, it'll rust again. So, we'll see. So the inside of the tank was cleaned out pretty good. I did notice down in the bottom and the back there were some few spots still. So I went ahead and filtered the Vaporust out through a filter and then poured it back in. It's already looking pretty dark, the Vaporust. They say you can reuse it over and over again just until it stops working. But with how much I've already ran through it with the filter and the license plate bracket, it might already be getting a little worn out. So we'll see. We'll let this sit for another 24 hours. And after that, hopefully I can line it. I'm probably just going to use a combination of a 2-stroke oil and let that soak into the metal. I don't really like liners. I'd rather just soak it in oil and keep it full, and I've heard a lot of good experiences with just doing that. So we'll see. Well, it is another day. I don't know how many I've been on this now, but been messing with this Vaporust for quite a while now. I'm on my 3rd tank fill, so hopefully this will be my last one and I can dump it out. I've been restoring a few bits. Here's the tail light. I want to keep a lot of this like patina. So I went through and deep cleaned, removed all the rust on all this stuff, and then clear coated it. So that's how I'm going to preserve a lot of the stuff. So back in here I've been working. This is actually patinaed, kind of clear coated. I'm going to keep all that exposed metal where all the rust was. I know a couple people are going to be like, it was a bad decision, or it's not going to last, or stuff like that. But I really didn't want a brand new paint job on this bike. I wanted to kind of preserve the wear and the tear, the fade, and the condition that the bike has to show. I think it's kind of fitting. Now, some other bits, like hinges, like these are the seat hinges. I went through and removed all the rust and then painted and clear coated. And if they don't last, I mean, I can always get them powder coated, but here's a lot of the old hardware. And some of this I might try to touch up and maybe like I don't know. I'm just afraid that it's going to rust again. So I might replace some of it with some actual stainless hardware. So I've been wanting to do the suspension and get that swapped over. I've just kind of been biding my time because I'm afraid to work too quickly and miss some sort of detail. I think for now I'm going to dump out that tank, get it sealed up, and try to clear coat it tonight. And this will soak into the metal and prevent it from flash rusting too bad. Sorry about my flashlight. We have a oil-lined gas tank now that is clean.